it hopes gas production can start in 2026. The local council has previously warned of irreversible harm to the environment. Let's speak to the leader of Waverley Borough Council, Liberal Democrat Councillor Paul Follows, who's joining us from the council's office in Godalming in Surrey. Councillor Follows, thank you. What are your concerns about this site being explored?
Well, Waverley, like many councils across the country, has declared a climate emergency, and so are naturally concerned about the extraction of any fossil fuels at all. And certainly when you look at the location for this is a centre right in the Surrey Hills. It's a picturesque area. This is an area that is occupied already by multiple residences and businesses that are going to be adversely impacted by anything that happens in this area. And when you look at government policy, which apparently wants to set us on a net zero trajectory, even by their own fairly minimal ambitions of 2050, by allowing coal mines in Cumbria and gas extraction in places like Dunsfold and the Surrey Hills, it's very difficult to see how those objectives are anything but words.
How can you stop it happening then?
Well, in terms of stopping, well, we've been trying for some time. I mean, we've been working with other neighbouring authorities, certainly through the planning process, to try and stop this. And I've certainly written several times to the Secretary of State. We are at another probably final hearing on the subject at the High Court on March the 2nd. But realistically, these are things that government policy says is okay. And we've been trying to fight that every step. But obviously, when the government says that this sort of extraction is something that is appropriate and acceptable, it is very difficult for a local authority to do much about it, unfortunately.
It doesn't seem that it's covered by what we would know as fracking, which isn't permissible. But at a time when, as everybody knows, we're really struggling with energy bills, wouldn't it be a good idea to have our own source of gas?
Well, I mean, it would also be a good idea to expand solar power provision on and offshore wind and multiple other types of green energy provision. But these are things also that government policy is restricting left, right and centre. The idea of tapping further natural resources under somewhere like Dunsfold is obscene. I mean, I think the other thing I would also flag is that there is absolutely no stipulation here that they couldn't export the gas outside of the UK, rendering some of these national energy security elements that they flagged here to be completely irrelevant. So from my point of view, the fact that they're not providing any kind of bond to protect the environment, despite the amount of money that they're attaching to this scheme, is more evidence that this is not a safe thing to be doing. I mean, you've referred there to the distinction in this country about what qualifies as fracking and what isn't. I think any reasonable person looking at the techniques that they're going to deploy in this scheme would probably qualify it as very similar, if not equal, to fracking. And the government made it very clear that the moratorium on fracking, if there were going to be such schemes, would only be done with the support of the local population. I think if you speak to anybody in the local area, particularly the businesses that are going to be potentially adversely affected by this, there is not support for this. But because, of course, it is technically not fracking in this country, the government haven't even replied to our questions on the subject.
Where do you go next then?
Well, I mean, we hope that we will have some. We'll get something at the High Court next week. On the 2nd of March. But ultimately, we have previously had the support of our MP in fighting this. The now Chancellor Jeremy Hunt. Of course, since his elevation to the Chancellery, we have heard absolutely nothing from him on this subject. And it's my hope that he might also now get back involved in this and try and fight it, because ultimately it doesn't achieve the aims that even his government are trying for on net zero or indeed energy security.
Councillor Paul Follows, leader of Waverley Borough Council, will follow the progress of that through the High Court. Thank you for talking to us.
My pleasure.